on the top page here, and that's where we're going to start today. Okay, in the back is lots of information about our company, about setting up personal reviews. This church has been already signing up online. We have personal meetings with people in the afternoon today, all day tomorrow, and all day Tuesday. Monday night and Tuesday night, we have more teaching classes, and then we have a lunch scheduled as well for you guys. And that whole schedule's in the back, and you can go through that later. All right, well, thank you for the prayers for our travels. We feel very welcome here. The house is very nice, very comfortable. We don't mind working 12 or 14-hour days. We do like getting a good night's sleep, though. So thank you for providing that comfort for us. So, am I pointing at that direction, this direction? Oh, maybe it's not on? No, it's on. We checked it beforehand. There we go. Not working? Yeah, I went right. What is biblical stewardship? There we go. Okay, so it's kind of an open discussion. This is Sunday school. It's not Sunday church service. Drew Geisey, I'll be introduced later. He's a pastor of some 28 years, been with our company for 6 or 8 years, and he'll be preaching from the pulpit today. But today we're just having a discussion about what is biblical stewardship. Anybody have any idea? It's also in your book. Any few words, what you thought it was about before you looked it up in the book? A lot of people say it's being a manager of money, but really it's a manager of all God bestows on you, your time, your talent, and your treasure, right? So caring for and managing everything that God entrusts to you. So if you have a skill like some of these musicians or a voice and you can sing, and you're not using it to glorify God, then that's not being a good steward of what He's blessed you with. It's the same with money. It's the same with your time. If you're not using your time to glorify God, we'll find out, we'll remove that from you because you're not being a good steward of that. So let's continue on. I'm really having trouble with this. Does it need a new battery? So what do children, did I skip over one? No.
So they get paper, and then
they
draw what's on it, and then they paint it green. Money! George Washington's dad invented.
Oh, you pressed the pause back there, Drew? So this is kind of kids explaining what money is. It's a kind of a funny video, and then we'll talk more about it.
Money. I needed my money to buy a new fish because my fish was dead. The car cost $150, $20. Zillion, million, hundred, thousand. 165. Zillion, thousand, million. That's not a number. It's still okay. Is a credit card a credit card where you just give it to the man and then he just does this and then he gives it back to you. You can buy whatever you want with it. I'm gonna use it for college. I don't go to college. No, you're supposed to go to college when you're a grown-up.
Yeah, kids are a riot, aren't they? Explaining what money is or how to be a good steward of it. So you can buy whatever you want was one of the things said with a credit card. I'm just going to use it, a credit card for college. George Washington's dad invented money, just kind of funny things. This video is funny, but we heard some of the kids' responses aren't exactly what we would call biblical responsible investing or stewardship, right? So why should we teach biblical stewardship to these children? Well, they have a misconception. If we don't teach them, someone else will. Agreed? So if we don't teach them the biblical responsibilities of stewardship, we're battling with Satan every day. Satan's going to lure them away from the biblical reasons to be a good steward rather than instead of teaching them biblical stuff, they're going to teach them the ways of the world. We want to make sure they understand what God says about money and stewardship, not what the world says. So by age 2, a child's worldview is already starting to be developed. You can see this from the 5-year-olds that we just heard from. By age 9, a child's moral foundation is generally in place, knowing right from wrong. And then by 13, a child's worldview is practically set in stone. So it's really hard to change after that. Without proper guidance, children will have a distorted view of what money is and how it should be used. God's word has a lot to say about money and stewardship. Money is mentioned over 800 times in the Bible, money specifically. There are over 2,200 financial verses or references in the Bible. Of everything Jesus taught, 15% was on the topic of money, possession, and things. So it's a pretty important subject, and none of it's a salvific issue. You don't lose your salvation if you're a bad steward. But we want to hear one day the Lord say, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been entrusted with a little, we're going to put you in trust of more. And that can happen right here and now. This is why we say people that have money have more money, because they know what to do with money. In some of my personal review session, I say if everybody's money was taken in the whole country and everybody was given $1 million, the same people 5 years from now would have $1 million or more, and the same people that have no money would probably have no money. Would you agree? They just know what to do with money. So we want to be good stewards with what God blesses us with, because like the parable of the talents, Matthew 25, some are given 5 talents, some are given 2, and some are given 1. What did the one with 5 do? Do you remember? He doubled it. What did the one with 2 do? He doubled it as well. What did the one with 1 do? Buried it. He was afraid, did nothing with it. The master comes back and takes it from him, gives it to the one that had 10. Why? He didn't need the money. He had 10 talents. We don't even know what a talent is, but if a talent is 1 year's salary, just for ease of calculation, put your own salary in there. If you were given 10 times your salary, he knew what to do with the master's money, the one that had 10 talents. So he was given the one that had the 1, and that's where the master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been entrusted with a little, we'll put you in trust of more. So remember from Matthew, on the bottom of, look with me at the bottom of page 1 there. You can't serve both God and money. Agreed? That's God's word. Right? Matthew 25 says that no one can serve 2 masters. It's impossible to serve both God and money. One of these masters will ultimately own the hearts of our children and grandchildren. So we want to try to encourage you, whether you have children that need education and stewardship, or you have grandchildren in that age, or you're single and you're working for the church in Sunday school, you can train up these children in the way they should go, and they won't depart from it. So remember Proverbs 22:6 says that we should train up our children in the way they should go, and they won't depart from it. So Ephesians 6:4 also says that fathers do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And this is kind of what we're doing here. If you're not very good at it, we're going to give you an outline and teach you how to teach children, and you'll learn more on your own stewardship if you're able to teach somebody else it as well. So it has to be the family that's going to teach this. It can't be the world, because if we're trusting the world, remember all the marketing and marketing techniques, you deserve a break today, or buy now, pay later, or buy this brand new car, put it on credit. So if we train up our children in the way they should go, they won't depart from it. God usually has uniquely designed the family to teach a model of a biblical stewardship to the next generation. So that's what we're encouraging here. So we also need to be effective to the next generation. We need to be aware, proactive, and intentional. We don't want to be reactive. When something goes wrong, we don't want to change the plan. We want to, ahead of time, be aware that Satan is competing for your children's soul, and they're competing for their money and their time and their treasure. So we want to be proactive with it, and we want to be intentional. Have a plan in place ahead of time so we're aware of the competition. Satan's our competition, right? Sorry, I'm having so much trouble with this. So the enemy is in a battle every day. There is a lot of competition for our children's hearts. It comes from the sources like advertisements, friends, kids get new sneakers or whatever, school teachers. Ultimately, Satan is the one doing that. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. We want to protect our children from that enemy. Be aware of the worldviews in conflict, right? There are 2 worldviews that are constantly competing for lifestyle choices and the hearts and minds of our children and grandchildren. One is God's view, and one is the world's view. But the biblical worldview, remember, is that Seeing and understanding the world through the lens of Scripture, a biblical worldview of stewardship is understanding that God owns everything. Everybody hear that? God owns, you can even repeat that. God owns everything, right? Do you agree? Stewardship is an understanding that God owns everything. Thank you, Drew. Stewardship is that God owns everything, and we are all stewards of what He's entrusted us to take care of. Biblical. We are not the owners. When you think you own something and you hold on to it so tight, you're not the owner. God finds a way of getting that out of your hands. So we want to make sure that we're generous givers. We are just stewards of. We want to take care of our property, our homes, and our cars, so we can give them away. Like the house we're staying in now, it's very nice. It's very nice, well kept. We're sleeping well. I appreciate that. But that's a blessing somebody in the church gave to us. I don't even know who it is, but I know they have a joy of giving things to people when they're traveling. So we thank you, whoever that is. Be aware of our responsibility and opportunity. A biblical worldview of stewardship gets diminished when worldly influences take precedence over what we teach and model. We see this in Luke 12:15 and Mark 4:19. It says, we are entrusted with a critical responsibility of an exciting opportunity to help our children develop their biblical worldview so that they might live out their faith in love, for the love of God and trust in His Word. We need to be aware that it's not enough. We also need to be proactive in planning. So we're aware of these things. Remember, the first one was awareness. The next one is proactive in planning. It means acting in anticipation of future problems, needs, or changes. Being proactive prevents us from being reactive. Can somebody read a small passage for me in the Bible? Raise your hand. I want to ask you a question first. Can you read something for me? What version do you have? New King James. Anybody else have a New King James version? Okay. So you read Proverbs 22:3 for me, and you read Proverbs 27:12 for me. Go ahead. Read Proverbs 22:3. It says, okay. Okay.
A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished.
Okay, so can you read 27:12 for me?
A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished.
Didn't you just read that? In 22:1. Are you in 27:12? Did you look ahead?
No.
And did you look backwards? It's the same exact verse, but they're five verses later. Do you see it? One's in 22 and one's in 27. So if God says this in His Word twice in Proverbs, only five verses or 5 chapters apart, it's pretty important, wouldn't you say? There's a lot of duplication like that in the Bible, including synoptic gospels. But for teaching us the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it, what that means is we want to be proactive. We want to see danger. What could be a danger for somebody planning for college, right? Or planning for a marriage? It looks like a danger because it costs so much, or buying a car. But we can plan for these things. We know college will probably come. We know marriage will probably come. We know you're going to need a new car. They break. So we want to look ahead and foresee this evil, whatever it is, not being able to pay for it. The evil could be, well, I'm going to finance everything. I'm going to put the college on my credit card. That's not a good plan, right? Have a plan for paying for these things. Instead of being reactive, when college comes up for your 2-year-old 10, 15 years later, you want to have some money put aside for those kids. If they're 2 to 5 or 6 years old, you want to have some money put aside for that so they can go to college if that's part of your plan. The inactive faces those consequences. Remember the parable of the fig tree or the parable of the 10 virgins? We want to be prepared ahead of time. The 10 virgins were the clipping of their wicks, be it ahead of time and having oil enough. We want to make sure that we're prepared when the master comes, that we've done these things in the correct way. So also we want to be proactive with helping children manage a consistent income, buying their first car, avoiding credit card debt, paying for college, wedding expenses, understanding budgeting. There's nothing wrong with going to college for 5 or 6 years if you have to work 6 months and go to school 6 months. I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia, and they called that a co-op program. So I thought it was a great idea. I worked 6 months, I made some money, I went to school 6 months, and I got out in 5 years. By the time I got out, I had already had 2.5 years of work experience in my field, so I had a lot of choices of jobs as well. So there's nothing wrong with doing that if it's part of your plan. You don't have to pay for a 4-year college all at once and not expect the children to work a little bit for it. We like them to have some skin in the game as well. So proactive in parenting is critical, wouldn't you agree? Being aware of the conflicting worldviews and teaching a biblical worldview along with being proactive in our planning and guiding our hearts of our children and grandchildren is not enough, okay? So we looked ahead, we're being proactive, and now we're going to be intentional. The next thing is to be intentional. Remember, I told you a couple places in the Bible that says the same thing twice. So Deuteronomy 6:7 and Deuteronomy 11:19. We could go through that same exercise, but it basically says you shall teach your children, teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise. This is talking about teaching them the Word of God. These are important verses because it says the same thing twice again. We could do, Drew has a couple more examples even in the service this morning. If God says it twice in a row, and especially when they're that close together, it must be pretty important. So sit up and pay attention to those verses, correct? To be intentional means you're thoughtful, you're purposeful, you're deliberate. Intentionally is how we teach and model stewardship to our children. It's the most effective way to develop a way to honor the Lord. And parenting is a marathon. Remember, if you are not doing this right now, it's not going to change tomorrow morning because you heard me come and speak for an hour. It's a marathon. It takes some time. And we'll give you some more tips of things to do that you can do practical steps and implement some of these things. But wherever you are in your journey of teaching stewardship, it's never too late. Okay? Some people said, it's too late for me. I'm 60 years old. I can't do it. But an 80-year-old says they wish they were 60, right? So a 40-year-old says, I can't do it, my kids are already 10 or 12. But a 50-year-old has said, I wish I did it when my kids were 10 or 12. A 30-year-old will say, I wish I did it when my kids were born, right? But they're not 25 anymore. So wherever you are, it's never too late. Just remember that. I've even taught people in their 65 and 70 years old, they said, I wish you were here decades ago. I would have learned this. I would have stayed out of debt. It's really good to start, whatever age you are, to do something. So now I'm going to give you some 3 hands-on teaching methods for you to learn how to do some of these things about teaching children how to be good stewards. So when children are actively involved in learning, they're able to develop a deeper understanding of stewardship and how it applies to the world. The use of hands-on methods will help lay the critical foundation for them to make God-honoring financial choices both today and in the future. So this is what we're going to try to do today. We're going to offer 3 hands-on teaching methods. So the first one's called the 4-quarter method, okay? And the way it works is that starting at age 5 or 6 or so, we want to make sure that every Friday night, usually Saturday night, maybe Sunday morning before church, we give them each a quarter. The first quarter we're going to give them is for giving to God. We're going to teach the children giving to the Lord first, okay? That should be the priority. Drew goes into a little bit more detail in the sermon this morning. And then the first quarter should be giving to the Lord. Giving. Okay, so giving. The next quarter, this is for 5, 6, 7-year-olds, like the kids in the show. We're giving them a quarter. It doesn't go that far, but I'll give you another example here in a second. The second quarter should be short-term savings. So the second quarter, what you're giving away is short-term savings. These are things that less than a year away, like they want to go out to the movies, or they want to go to buy a candy bar, or they want to something that's going to be less than a year away. Not for college, not for cars. Don't have them think that big for the second quarter. Think of short-term savings. And let's say they save 4 quarters and they spend $1 on a candy bar. That's a good way to save for something like a candy bar. The next one is long-term savings. Sorry, I'm really having trouble with these. So for the larger costs, things like they can be saving for a summer camp a year down the road, or they're going to go take a trip with grandma and they need some spending money or something like that. Longer down the road when they're doing some things longer than a year. You can even have them save for a car if they want to put it in. If they're 10 years old and they want to save for a car 5 years away, they can start saving early for a car. And then the fourth one is this is my most fun one. It's called fun money. And you can teach them a big word here. If they're 6, 7 years old, you can teach them the word discretionary. It's not easily understood by a child, but discretionary means you can do anything you want with it. So the first quarter goes to God, the second quarter goes to short-term savings, the third one goes to long-term savings, and the fourth one is discretionary. You can do whatever you want with it. You can give it to a friend, you can spend it on your candy bar, you can add it to your long-term saving, you can give it to the Lord. It's kind of funny to see how kids' worldviews are already developed. At 5, 6, 7 years old, most of them are going to keep it for themselves, but that's why we give the first quarter away. It's giving to the Lord. So this is, a couple other points on this is that we don't want to borrow any money from other children if you have multiple children. We want to keep the funds separated, so we have separate jars or separate envelopes for each quarter. We don't want to borrow from each other. If one kid's a good saver and one's not, you don't want them borrowing or lending. We also don't want them to spend it all. So they can't say, I'm taking out all of my long-term savings, my $5, and I'm spending it on one thing. Say, well, spend half of it on that long-term thing, because you're going to need other long-term expenses. And then we can encourage them as we go, and we can redirect them into certain things, because they're going to make mistakes, right? Other things you want to start doing is maybe match their contributions. So if you tell them, if you have this long-term savings, a quarter a week for 50 weeks is $12.50, and another 2 quarters, you'd have $13 after a year. If you have $13 at the end of a whole year in your long-term saving, and you're still saving for something, maybe you could match it, give them incentive. Sort of like our retirement plans, like we like getting matching money, give them that yearly incentive. Okay, before I go into the next system for a little bit older children, is there a 10-year-old in the... Who's our youngest person here? How old are you? 12? I've got an exercise for you. Come on up here. You'll like it because there's real money involved. Look, I'm taking out my wallet. You'll like this, but I want to see if you learn these things, okay? So instead of quarters, I'm giving you brand new $2 bills. You see them? You can look at them. They're in sequential order because I just made them. Like it's serial numbers 48, 49, 50, 51. They are. I got a stack of them, and I flip through them, and the numbers count. I'm a numbers guy. So this is it's not quarters, right? Because quarters for you aren't a real big deal, but $2 bills are pretty cool. Can I show them this too? On the back of the $2 bill is the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, my home state. So you don't see too many of those around, do you? And they're brand new, those dollars. So if you were given 4 quarters, and you're being blessed today with 4 $2 bills, what should you do with your first $2? Do you remember? Giving. Who do you give to? The Lord's work. So today, whoever's counting money should see a $2 bill in there, right? Because you're going to put it in the envelope, right? Perfect. So you got $8 and you're giving 2 away. The next quarter goes to where? Short-term savings. This kid's brilliant. What's your name? Finn. Okay, Finn. So the short-term savings, is there something you want in the next month or 3 that you think you might spend $2 on? Yeah, you can just save it for short-term, and if something comes up, like you want to buy a candy bar, are you going fishing next weekend? You know, okay. If you're going fishing, you could buy bait with it. And then the next $2 is supposed to go where? Long-term saving. Brilliant, kid. And what do you think you might need? How old are you now? 12, you said? Maybe when you're 16. What do you might need at 16? A car, right. What might you need at 18? College. He's really paying attention. So, and then what should the last be for? The last $2? Fun, anything. What was that big word I taught you? Do you remember it? He got discretionary. See, it's a big word. Now you learned a big word. Discretionary means I can do whatever I want with it. So you can give it to the Lord, you can buy a candy bar, you can save it for college, or you can spend it however you want, okay? Thank you for coming up. No, it's yours. You can keep them. That's what I told you. Thank you. It's real money. You have to do that now, okay? All right. Give Finn a hand. Thank you, Finn. Okay. So I do that for the $2 bills because I love $2 bills. I honestly buy a stack of them, 100 of them for $200, and I give them away, and I tip with it, and everybody likes to talk about $2 bills. But when you get them all brand new, they smell good, they're in sequential order. If anybody would like to fan through my $2 bills and see the numbers, I just get a kick out of it. It's like, yeah. All right. So the next practical step would be, Let's try an envelope system for older children, okay? So I told you the quarters aren't a big deal for Finn or 12 years old, but $2 bills are pretty cool. Maybe a $5 a week allowance would be something, or a $10 a week allowance, however you want to divide it up. And on page 4 of our booklet, there's kind of a guideline there of what ages you should start those. You see age 5 or 6, $1, age 7, $2. Inflation's really taken a toll on that, so maybe it's double all those numbers. However you want to do it in your family. Remember, they're getting this money not because they worked for you. They're not employees. They're members of the family. They are members of your family, so the privilege of doing things for the family is part of being the family, right? They do things for you, you do things for them. But don't take their money away from them, their allowance or their giving, as a punishment. Find technology or time away or things like that that you can punish them for. Make the money thing a weekly part of the routine that they don't lose. It's the same as your job. You could lose a job because of poor performance, but they're a member of your family because God created them there. So you want to make sure they're blessed with that money, however much money you want to give them, that they use it wisely. This is what we're teaching. So we don't want the first lesson to be learned, if you don't make your bed, you're losing your allowance. As a general rule, you don't watch TV if you don't make your bed. Do you see the analysis there? Their money they get as a blessing because they're part of your family. Okay, so try this envelope system then, a method of money management that encourages older children to have a spending plan. It's best to switch the envelope system once the child reaches the middle school, so the quarters will work until about middle school or those ages in the book. You have to decide if your kids are ready or understand that. Also allow for mistakes. It provides that monthly income to teach the children the discipline of planning ahead and living on a budget. But allow for mistakes. They're not going to be perfect at it. None of us are perfect at it, and none of this is a salvific issue. So if they spend all their short-term money and don't have something the next week, don't lend it to them. Don't give them in advance. Don't let them borrow from another fund. Let them learn their lesson. The lesson is don't spend it all because I'm always going to have short-term expenses. Same as we have to budget for our own work. If we know we have an electric bill at the end of the month for $200, and we spend everything before the end of the month, that's a problem. So this is what we're trying to teach them. This is your budget. This is what the Lord's blessed you with. Some people are blessed with 5 talents. Some are blessed with 2. Some are blessed with 1. What are you going to do with whatever you're blessed with as being part of the family? So also put a predetermined amount or percentage of the amount in designated envelopes. So when they give the first to Jesus, then the first Sunday, if you're giving out their allowance on Sunday morning, they can put that in their pocket and they're going to put it in an envelope in the church. You can supervise that, but we're hoping they're being honest about that. And if they're not and they're being selfish, this is a good teaching lesson. Don't take their allowance away from them. Teach them to give that first tithe to the Lord. Then when they do have $2,000 as an income for a week, they're going to be more apt to give $200. You see? We're getting them into that pattern. Consider matching those long-term savings again. Make sure they're using them for the predetermined example, for tithing, for clothing, for lunch, for car insurance when they're older. Consider matching those long-term savings. If you give them $1 a week and you can budget for $52 at Christmas time once a year, that's their Christmas bonus. Now what are they going to do with $104? Well, you know it's going to cost more than that for a car, so let's keep saving for a car. Then you can move that money to a bank account eventually. So I always tell people, though, if you can't see what they're doing, you can't inspect it, you cannot expect it. So inspecting it is part of the routine. You're allowed to look at it. They're still your children. You want to go through, do a little bit of an audit, count their quarters in the envelope, count their quarters in the jar, make sure their long-term savings is right. Then once the long-term savings is matched, start the envelope system all over again for the next year. Any questions? This is for a little bit older children. And then on the chart on page 5, there's a how much responsibility should you give your children? So at grade 6, at the bottom there, you can do the long-term savings, short-term savings. So that's the middle school. And then we want to do other extracurricular activities, youth group activities, shoes. I remember giving my kids $200, and I said, you can spend whatever you want on clothing as long as it's $200. And so one year, my son bought $180 sneakers and no other clothes. And by January, he's wanting new clothes. I said, well, you already bought $180 sneakers. Well, don't you know the next year, and the feet are always growing for boys, right? the next year he's buying more clothes because you outgrew those sneakers pretty quickly. So to spend a lot of money on designer stuff, that's the lesson I could teach him then. Well, $200 30 years ago went a lot farther. You may have a $500 clothes budget. And if they're teenagers and they're getting to be responsible, let them be responsible for picking designer clothes or picking the cheaper ones so they have more money for other things. They may like more jeans or more sweaters if they're not brand names. Does that make sense? Okay, but inspect what they're saving for. So another method we can teach, I told you I had 3 methods to teach generosity and giving and all that, is a surprise generosity. We call this surprise generosity company. We used to call it that, or a surprise package company. Well, this we want to develop a heart of generosity through being generous through people in the church or the community. We want to look for opportunities of our surrounding area, churches and neighborhood. Sorry. Oh. Are you advancing for me? Sorry. So I'm on the look for opportunities. Surprise generosity. Are you helping me advance or not? Okay. I don't know why it went back a page, but I'm getting there. I'm just hitting the advance. Now it's going backward, but I'm still going forward. Okay. Yeah, you can advance it for me if you will. You got it? Okay, thanks, Drew. So we want to look for opportunities. This is called Surprise Generosity Company or Package. This is a unique way of training your children to have a heart of generosity, looking for the needs of others. So in your church or community, speak with your pastor. Look for suggestions from individuals or families in your community or your church or your school. If your kids come back from school and say somebody's in sneakers with holes, maybe they could use some generosity or help. You may also be aware of other people in the community or other people in the church. The surprise package is that you meets the needs of others either through tangible items or financial gifts, or for a bigger impact, we recommend looking for the opportunities around Thanksgiving to bless someone during the upcoming Christmas season. Maybe a removal of snow for people. You can do surprise service for people. So you can either look for a surprise package to give somebody something or surprise service, wash their car. If it's I always say a little old lady loves having her yard done because maybe her husband passed away and he used to do all that for her. So look for those opportunities to help people and have your kids bring these opportunities. They want to pray for discernment. So have these kids bring the opportunities to you and have like a family meeting and decide, well, can we help this person? Can we help that person? I know from being generous, I can't help everybody, but I can sure help the people I help. It's a real blessing to them. So I want to try to help people, as many as I can, but I know I can't help everybody. So as people bring up, this person needs new shoes, this person needs their lawn cleared, this person needs their walk shoveled, talk about it as a family. What can you do together? Maybe all of you get out there and shovel a walk, or all of you get out there and wash a car, and then just run away. Don't even tell the person you did it and see if, the Lord will bless that. You don't have to worry about getting a thank you for it. You're not doing it for the thank yous of man. We're doing it for our rewards in heaven, right? So make sure that we're doing it for the right purposes. Pray for discernment, what you should do and how you should do it. You could donate money or time or both. After your prayer, each child in the family should decide how they want to choose to bless, decide how you want to surprise someone, the surprise package, surprise service, or a combination of both. Examples are that you can give money if in need. If you have $100, you can give somebody you know that they've lost their job. It really goes a long way. Helping neighbors with projects or financially supporting missionaries. And then I love hearing from missionaries how many children came to know Christ because of their missionary work in Haiti or somewhere. You want to serve on a mission trip, maybe go as a family somewhere and work for a week or 10 days. You think the kids kind of complain they don't have enough stuff. When they go serve in the mission field at 10, 12 years old, it really changes their lives. So think about doing a mission trip that way. And then buying or making care packages for the homeless is always a good thing as well. Surprise someone by being financially generous. Do something. Surprise package, we want to deliver a tangible or financial gift to a person. The child has to find the person to bless. That can be done personally or anonymously. I like to do them anonymously, but it's nothing wrong with somebody handing somebody a $100 bill. Surprise service, I think that's a real nice one to surprise somebody with. If they haven't looked at their yard lately and you just go there and clean it up, I like to see some of these on YouTube too. When the grass is overgrown, the concrete, and you clean all that out and shovel it and they have a walkway instead of walking on grass, because there's real concrete under there. It's a real blessing to that person. It almost brings them to tears that somebody would care enough about them. Then you can leave a little tract if you want, or say from your friends at First Baptist of Gunnison, and then they'll say, oh, that's a really neat church. Maybe I'll come here. I don't know who did it, Pastor, but this person cleaned my whole yard for me. That's a good testimony to Christ's service as well. So also we want to help each child choose the individual or family, let them get involved in it. Keeping it anonymous is a blessing. I spoke on that. But have your child be involved in every step. Don't let them just make the decision and not do any of the work. If it takes bringing a rake or a shovel, make them do some of the work as well. The benefits for the children are that they learn to be selfless, not selfish. 8, 9, 10-year-old kids are generally pretty selfish, but if they're looking for the needs of others, we're teaching them that ahead of time. They experience the joy of giving and serving. They might realize that they're so blessed with things that because other people don't have as much, holes in their sneakers I use as an example, they're going to maybe be more thankful for the things that they have. Children also can use some of their own resources. Remember, they'd get that discretionary money. As Finn said, maybe they can put some money in towards it as well. I have all this discretionary money I've been saving. I don't know what to do with it. Let me bless somebody. And then it reminds us that we are all recipients of the generosity of Christ, right? So they can always use the example. If they're helping another 10-year-old kid, they can even profess the gospel there and say, let me tell you about this guy, Jesus, that died for you on the cross. Maybe there's somebody at school. You help them get new sneakers, but they really need the gospel message. It's really just a platform to give your testimony to Christ. So in the beginning of our time this morning, we talked about the passage of Scripture that we put before you was Proverbs 22:6, right? I said, train up your child in the way they should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So I hope that we were able to disclose some of that to you guys, train him up in the way he should go in God's Word, even in tithing and stewardship. And then what impact will teaching biblical stewardship have in your church and your community? One day the next generation will be the leaders of the world. It comes quicker than we think, right? When will we be serving? And they will be serving our families, our churches, our places of business and government. By teaching them these principles now to the next generation, our children and grandchildren will develop that lifestyle of stewardship that will guide their future families and finances. We want to strengthen our local church, and we want to impact the kingdom for the glory of God. This was a lot of information this morning, right? So hopefully this was helpful and encouraging to you. But the next steps, let's take a moment and share one or two things that maybe you've learned this morning. Anybody? Finn learned a lot. He recited those word for word. Now what's the big word I said? Discretionary, right? Great. But he got it. I have some kids that don't know one of those things, and they just heard it from me. So he was paying attention. And now you have $8. 2 of it you're putting in the envelope, right? Or in church. And then you know what to do short-term, long-term, and discretionary. Drew's going to teach more on this for adults because this was a Sunday school for training up our children. Anybody else pick up something that they liked? Didn't like? Yes, sir?
I just like the, using the envelope system for my older.
As they're older? Yep, they can see it. You can't expect it unless you inspect it. So as a dad, if you check it in Christmas time and they don't have $52 bills or 52 10s, whatever you're going to pay them, let them suffer the consequences. You love them, but you must have taken some money out of this because it's not in there. You're going to need bigger, stronger envelopes, I tell people. You can't just put in a little mailing envelope if you're going to put 52 bills in it. Okay?
I just want to say with the comment that was made about with the older children, basically what it is you tally up how much you're going to spend on that child for the year, and then you're not spending any extra. You're just now metering it out over a period of time, and they now are responsible. It's better for them to make a mistake in your home where there's grace than they do it out in the real world where there's no grace. So you're not spending any extra money. I think that's an important piece. You're just taking what you are going to spend and you put it out over a period of that time. And it's amazing the impact that makes in the life of a teenager, because when they have those days, if it's college they go off to, they already know how to budget money and actually do it well.
A lot of kids get to college and don't know how to balance a checkbook or don't even know how to handle money. So this is what we're trying to get that ahead of time. So the last slide, I think, is the stewardology. Yeah, so if you are good with QR codes, even if you're not, I can show you how to use it on your phone. Scan this QR code because Stewardology now has over 250 episodes. You can search on children or giving or any subject matter, Roth IRAs. We'll talk about more financial stuff for the adults later on, investing and retirement. But you can just go on there and search for the 4-quarter method and things like that. And there'll be about a half an hour, 45-minute Stewart podcast. And you can play it at 1.5, 2 times speed. One of the speakers is Drew Geisey, one of our pastor and the president of our company. And they basically just have a conversation every week. And then I know it's a lot of episodes to listen to at once. Maybe you like getting it once a week. You can sign up for that. Or you can go to stewardologypodcast.com, and then you can search for an episode on giving or something like that. Okay? So we'll do a break now. I try to stick to be on time. We'll have churches at 11 and go enjoy some coffee. If you have questions, I'll be around to answer them for you, okay? Thank you. God bless you. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm not a punisher of this because they're not teaching them the lesson of what to do with the money. Right? So you wouldn't like it if you were paid your job and then, I mean, that's being fired. We can't fire them from our family, so it's a little different relationship. So try to find other ways to punish them for not doing their work. Like you didn't make your bed, so you don't get any TV. But let them keep the money, okay? Just my theory, being a dad, I think it works out best to do it that way. But you start punishing them for not doing then they're only doing the job because they want the money. They should be doing their job because they're part of the family. Does that make sense? Okay.